board's charge to see what our thoughts are on where that is, we're all in the same awareness of what that means. And also the staff, I'd like them to chime in as well to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay.
So you described that. Again, this outcome of this ad hoc committee, though, is to find recommendations that will go to the full board for the selection of one.
That's correct.
Okay. So in terms of the board's charge, you would add that piece to it.
Right, and that is an important clarification. So we will not be making the final selection. The final selection will be made by the school board. But we will be recommending, making recommendation of, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to be coming up with a short list of people who we're considering who we will then be interviewing in a public meeting, and then the school board in an open meeting will be voting to make the final selection of that person. Is that how you understand it?
That's my understanding. That's what I said. And Ms. Rico, you're the addition who hasn't been part of that conversation, and you.
That was the first time I've heard that. So thank you for that information.
Thoughts?
All right, I guess we're going to narrow it down so that we present them with how many candidates? Do we know?
We didn't decide on an exact number, but we certainly wouldn't want it to be over, I would believe, 4. I don't know why I put that out as a magic number, but suggestion from the.
Well, firstly, your June 24th board minutes, and I quoted it in my paper, gives the impression that the subcommittee will do the selection. And that is not the intent, as I understand it. The intent is for the full board to do the selection. So I think the June 24th minutes are a little misleading. I would hope that the subcommittee will make a recommendation to the board, because it's really difficult for the board to get 3 or 5, proposals, and then not have the benefit of interviewing and so on. So I would like to suggest that the charge be clear that you would recommend both the attorney, and then I think the intent is the attorney will assist you in the recommendation for the department, and clearly you want them to be compatible with each other. But further than that, after that is done, it seems to me the subcommittee is really good at managing the investigation, and that is not in any of the documents that I've seen so far. And I believe that's the intent, that you are going to be the investigating body, essentially, and ultimately would recommend a final report.
Well, so we have a specific charge that doesn't go that far down the timeline. That could happen, that might make sense. But I think we have to get some clarity on this initial step here now. Of course, whoever is selected, be it a few people as finalists or one attorney, that does have to be voted on by the school board. But it was my understanding, and some of this discussion has been evolving, but it was my understanding that there would be a vote on the school board about some of the finalists, and that would they be a part of the a presentation given by the finalists?
I think that's partly what we have to determine out of this work of this ad hoc committee. I do think, though, there is nothing that, the only thing I remember we are charged with specifically is to take whether we call it a recommendation or a set of candidates to, for the school board to make a choice. And so I don't think there's anything that precludes this committee from making recommendations. Hence, the scoring guide here could guide us on how we rank those top 3 or 4 based on the interviews that we will use.
Madam Chair.
Excuse me, but the Associate Superintendent LeBlanc.
Yes, and I've gone through screening committees and interview processes and recommendation type of tomorrow. We'll know for sure after the deadline, and then we can go through a screening of those proposals and invite the firms to interview with the subcommittee. If that's within the RFQ, I would have to double check that, and then make a recommendation to the board.
I think that makes sense for this stage of the investigation. It's possible that we might want to handle the selection of a forensic auditor differently, but we'll be discussing that later in the process. But it makes sense to me now that we would plan on making a recommendation of one person unless circumstances come up that lead us to another outcome where we want to get some help in making that final selection.
So let me ask this question. Obviously, as board members, maybe have a little more insight into this, but just in my attendance at the last board meeting on June 24th, when the committee was created, that wasn't what I expected to happen. I got the sense that this subcommittee was going to take it all the way through, select the special counsel, then work with the subcommittee to identify the forensic auditor. So is this going to fit into the timeline? Because this is a pretty aggressive timeline if we're going to present whomever we recommend, or whomever, if we get more than one person, one company, by the 21st of this month.
Well, this is a timeline that was submitted by a member of the public, which is very useful, and we're lucky because we have very involved public that does have excellent ideas. But I think right now we have a 3-session timeline for getting to the point where we can make a recommendation to the school board for the July 21st meeting. As I understand it, that's what we'll be doing, and yes, I do agree, that's not our only charge. Our charge is to work together as a subcommittee through the selection of the forensic auditor, and that might turn out that we extend our responsibilities beyond that time.
Okay.
So I just want to confirm that I understand your awareness of what I understand our charge to be in terms of the scope of
Well, I do
identifying.
I do now.
Identifying the, but in terms of how you walked away with your understanding that we would work as a ad hoc committee to find that recommendation for special counsel, and then work with that special counsel to create the process and work to find that forensic auditor.
But our timeline is pretty short. I mean, we're still looking at the board meeting on 21st.
And we have the meetings scheduled so that we can make it, And keeping with our earlier vote, at this time we will take input from community members about this item, which is review of the board's charge to the subcommittee. Mr. Chihiner, did you have a comment?
Yes, a couple of things. One, I think this committee should be the one selecting the firm. You're charged with investigating this, and this committee, not some other board, should be making the decision as to who you bring in. Another thing is, who sent out the 2 letters, the 2 RFQs to law firms?
Well, that was sent out at the direction of the president of the board. I'm not sure who physically.
Okay, it sounds to me like it's smacking up against the Brown Act, and it's kind of a selective process, you know, and it shouldn't have been done. It should be a level playing field, and it should have gone out to everybody in the public.
The RFQ?
Yes, and I don't know, but if I were sitting on that side of the table, I probably would not entertain a quote from either of those companies, only because of the way it was done. it's a dangerous precedent.
Other comments on this item? Ms. Lou?